Good morning, and welcome to the weekly multi-platform service of Tri-County Unitarian Universalists based in Summerfield, Florida. We acknowledge that we occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the indigenous Florida peoples. I am Nancy Garrison, today's service leader. Hello to our members and friends, and a special welcome to those who might be visiting here for the first time. Unitarian Universalists are united not by a creed of shared beliefs, but by a covenant of shared values. We celebrate that we do not need to think alike to love alike. It is our respect and encouragement of each other's diversity of thought that truly binds us together. For the curious and for the seekers, Unitarian Universalist values and covenant may be found on your order of service and on our website, triuu.org. Our newsletter, included in the timetable, can also be found there under News and Events. We have announcements, but first, please mute your phone or place it in airplane mode. Thank you. Liz James, today's speaker, will also be our forum speaker this Thursday, March 12th at 4 p.m. All are welcome, and a potluck follows. Helene and Trish will be leading a UU-style Passover Seder here at Tri-UU on Thursday, April 2nd at 4 p.m. Reservations are required by March 15th. See Helene or Trish if you have questions, and you can sign up on a list at the back table behind AV. This concludes our announcements. And as we now begin the service proper, we will recite our mission statement. Please join with your voice as we recite together. We unite in religious community to seek spiritual growth, live with integrity, and serve with compassion. Our chalice keeper today is Liz Perdue. We invite those of you joining us on Zoom to light your chalice at home.
Y'all bear with me, I'm kind of fangirling here. So, as we light our chalice, may we ponder the words from Liz James and the Facebook group UU Hysterical Society. Now, we are the UU Historical Society here. Okay. All right, test yourself. You may be a Unitarian Universalist if belly dancing has ever been part of a Sunday service. We had a hooker. Yeah. Yeah. On Halloween, you explained to everyone the pagan significance of their costumes. Yep. You get mail from committees you didn't know you were on. Looking at you, Bruce Twiss. Yeah. You know at least 2 people who were upset that trees had to die for your church to be built. All right, this one's going to get you. You considered Millard Fillmore one of the greatest U.S. presidents. He was Unitarian. Yeah. You were unsure about the gender of God. You think the Holy Trinity is reduce, reuse, and recycle.
Liz James is the founder of an online UU community called the Unitarian Universalist Hysterical Society, also known as UUHS, half of the Cracked Cup podcast, and is working on a book with Skinner House Press. She also runs Mirth and Dignity, an organization devoted to supporting diverse expressions of Unitarian Universalism.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. I checked the weather, it's blizzarding at home, so this is quite nice. And thank you for the very cool chalice lighting. I didn't write it. As you're reading it, I thought, did I write that? And then you got to the part about the US president, and I thought, I don't know who that is. But I love it when you... Oh, cool. Well, thank you. I'd never heard it before. I loved it. So for opening words, I have a short story and then a short opening words. So in my travels preaching about UUism and humor, I keep having this same conversation over and over again. Usually at coffee hour, someone will sidle up to me and they'll say, it's important to laugh. And I will say, I agree. And then they'll say, even right now, with all it's important to laugh. And I've been having this conversation for several years, and the all the keeps changing in new and adventurous ways, but there's always an all the. And I'm always struck by how this conversation is had in a hushed tone of voice that I assume people use for the buying and selling of drugs. Like somehow it's not okay to laugh when things are going wrong. UUs are earnest people, and we want to do the right thing, and I think sometimes it feels a little bit heretical to laugh when things are serious. And especially because there's a lot going on, and I am an outsider from Canada, I wanted to start by saying, taking time to celebrate laughter isn't a thing I do because I don't take these things seriously. It's a thing I do because I take these things seriously. And in that spirit, I have for you opening words by Dan Savage. During the darkest days of the AIDS crisis, we buried our friends in the morning, we protested in the afternoon, and we danced all night. The dance kept us in the fight because it was the dance we were fighting for. It didn't look like we were going to win. And then we did. It doesn't feel like we're going to win now, but we could. Keep fighting and keep dancing. And to that, I would add, keep laughing. Please stand as you're willing and able, and let's sing.
Good morning. Where are we going? You notice we have two people in the front, and this is another lovely round.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan
whoever
of
you are.
Come yet again,
lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come.
Great.
Thank you for bearing with me for a story of all ages this morning. It really is all ages. It's not just good for kids. My name is Humpty Dumpty. This was my favorite spot, high up on a wall. which, if you think about it, is an odd place for an egg to be. But I loved being up in the sky and close to the birds. And then one day I fell. I'm sort of famous for that part. Folks called it the Great Fall, but it was just an accident. But it changed my life. All the king's horses and all the king's men did manage to put me back together again. Well, most of me. There were some parts that couldn't be healed with bandages and glue. He's sleeping on the floor next to his bunk bed. After that day, I was afraid of heights. It kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. Now, for those of you on Zoom, you probably can't read, but up at the top of the grocery store, it has rainbow bites, sugar bunnies, free toy, chock-a-doodle, bowl of cookies. And along the bottom where the egg can reach, it has wheat biscuits, granola harvest, chicken feed, grown-up food, twigs and berries. I would walk past that wall every day, and I would think of climbing that ladder again. I missed being up in the sky with the birds, but I knew accidents can happen. And then one day, an idea flew by. Making paper planes was harder than I thought. It was easy to get cuts and scratches, but I kept trying and trying until one day, I got it just right. My plane was perfect. It flew like nothing could stop it. It wasn't the same as being up in the sky with the birds, but it was close enough. But then accidents happen. They always do. I thought about just walking away again. But then I thought about all the time I spent making my paper plane and all the other things that I'd missed, and I decided I was going to climb that wall. The higher I got, the more scared I felt. I didn't want to admit it, but I was terrified. I didn't look up. I didn't look down. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other until I was no longer afraid. And maybe now you won't think of me as an egg who was famous just for falling. Hopefully now you'll remember me as the egg who got back up and discovered he could fly.
As we move deeper into our service, is this on? Let us turn inward to consider transitions, the joys, sorrows, and concerns we all experience in our life's journey. There are 3 bowls of stones of different colors, representing the gratitude of joy, the grief of sorrow, and the hope of concern. After those present have placed stones in the water, our ushers will place stones from each of the bowls into the water on behalf of those not physically present and those who have chosen not to or who are unable to come forward. Those online are invited to type into the chat to express what is in your heart. When all the stones have been mingled in the water and all have shared, we will take a moment for silent meditation or prayer. As the sound of the bells brings us back into community, we will sing our response, "Find a Stillness." Ushers, you may now come forward. This month's potluck hosts, the communications and healthy relations teams are giving this morning's sharing of abundance.
Morning. Wow. There's still a lot of people considering the morning early. I'm the team leader for the communications team, and we've had a busy year. We're also always busy, but this year we have been working with Ken Pond to develop a new website. He's actually doing all the work, but he does ask us for our feedback and ideas, and we've been giving it. So soon we will have a new website. I wish he was here today to tell you all about it, but he's not. So we will wait, and we'll have a party when we launch the website. We've got to do that. We are responsible for publicizing Tri-UU events inside and externally. And just a little side note, Nancy brought me, what is the name? The Village's Sun newspaper? Daily Sun. Daily Sun. And they had a little article about our rummage sale. They had picked that up from our website, somebody in their staff. So we do get free advertising sometimes. And we also have Joan Herring, who does PR. We also publish news and events weekly, manage advertisements and social media, take pictures of events, write articles, administer the website, publish monthly newsletter, and manage the calendar. And these people who do these things include Myra Simons, Marie Lujanek, me, Jeff, who will talk for a moment. Amanda McWilliams writes. Erin Coleman does tech work, constant contact messages and icon. Nancy Garrison, she's always working. Brenda and Bill Nelson pick up the mail for us. I take phone messages and emails off our sites every day. And Reverend Christina handles our Facebook page. Jeff, I'd like to introduce Jeff, because what he does is get the newsletter out every month, and that is really important to us.
Thank you. Thanks. Good morning. I'm Jeff Tatarka. My wife, Darlene, and I joined the congregation here about a year ago. And for like the last 6 months, somebody kind of talked me into helping with not the website, the newsletter. So for the last 6 months or so, I've been working on that, trying to learn the new program. It's called Canva that we have as a church. We have a free subscription to it that we can use to create newsletters and flyers and whatever else you want to create. So if any of you have ever worked with that, I know my son is a principal at a local school, and he uses it all the time. He just loves it to make newsletters and flyers, things like that. So we've been doing that for about 6 months, I think it's been, that I've been helping out, and welcome any articles that you can send.
Yes.
You can send into Lenore or myself, or where else could they send? Nancy. And they'll be passed on to me if it's not to me, and I'll add it into the newsletter, and we'll try to keep that going and looking halfway decent.
Yeah. Looking better and better. Thank you, Jeff. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Karen Fletcher, and I'm the newest member of the Healthy Relations team, and I got roped into doing this presentation this morning. And I just want to say, I know that there are morning people in the audience, probably most of you, since you're here, and then there are night owls. And I'm a night owl. So personally, I'm surviving this morning on about 2 hours of sleep and a half a cup of tea. So I see a nap in my future this afternoon, but I'm glad all of you are here today. The purpose of the Healthy Relations Team are to be aware of situations where conflicts are occurring within our congregation and actively mediate conflicts with the membership, to create educational programs that will bring awareness of conflict resolution tools and process to the Tri-County UU congregation, to support our minister and congregation in our commitment to put into practice our UU values and keeping with our covenant of right relations, and to create and promote an organizational culture and climate that promotes respectful, open communication within the congregation and the community. Lenore has just done a tremendous amount of work on putting this flyer together, along with other things, but she's put this great pamphlet together, some of which are available on the back table behind AV, and there are also some available in the rack in the foyer area. This fully explains the process and everything that we do and how to utilize the team. The team members are Carolyn Bradley, Lenore Mickelson, Trish Schwartzberg, and me. Thank you.
Please do not touch the microphone. I hear somebody's phone going off, so please mute or put on airplane mode. Turn it off. We will now receive our offering. If you are visiting us for the first time, please do not feel obligated to give. You are our guest, and we are happy to have you here with us today. This is the time in our service when those who wish to make some monetary contribution to our congregation's vision and mission give to support this community and its outreach. If you are putting cash in the basket that you want credited to your pledge, please put the cash in a manila envelope with your name on the front. Envelopes are available on the table at the back of the sanctuary. I invite the ushers to come forward.
Just as I was beginning seminary, my congregation moved into a new building. I was on the board at the time and a busybody with my nose in everything, so I was involved somehow in renovating the space to make it suitable for Unitarian Universalists. First and foremost, that meant removing the giant wooden cross from the front of the room. Now, if you're new, I need to clarify, UUs are not afraid of crosses. Front of the room would have been a bit more Jesus than my congregation was looking for on a weekly basis. So the theology was clear. But in practical terms, turns out wood is very heavy. The phrase cross to bear is not just a pretty metaphor. Getting this thing off the wall was a feat of engineering and a near-death experience, and now what? This giant cross wouldn't fit in the back of my minivan. It would need to be cut into pieces, but you can't use a power saw in the sanctuary because sawdust flies everywhere, and there was an informal rule about no more power saws in the sanctuary, Liz, which was on the verge of becoming a formal rule. So this was the line of thinking that led me to a conversation with my friend Anne, who is a woman of great maturity and perspective. This is a sensitive time for your neighbors, Anne explained. With the loss of the old church that shrank down until they couldn't afford their building, your new neighbors will be grieving. But there's also potential for new connection, for inviting people in. And Liz, the community's introduction to Unitarian Universalism cannot be you taking a power saw to a cross on the front lawn of the old church. So I'm not sure how the cross got removed, called away in the end. For some reason, they didn't involve me any further, but it got done. But here's the thing. It had hung there for many years, beside the huge vaulted window through which light streamed down. And it's true what they say, light really does transform everything it touches, particularly on a timescale of years. And so sure enough, the paint around the cross had grown distinctly lighter, but the paint behind the cross had not so much. So now immediately beside the pulpit was a clear stenciled outline. Now, we could have solved this by repainting, of course. In order to do that, we would have had to agree on paint colors. And the decorating committee pointed out that the colors couldn't be chosen until the fabric for the new chairs that would replace the pews had been chosen. The worship committee felt the pews couldn't be removed until we talked about how we embody our identity in the structure of our worship space, particularly when it comes to religious authority, and so on. So for many months, we did not worship beside a giant cross. Instead, we worshiped by the very conspicuous shadow cast by its absence, a giant metaphorical Jesus was here symbol stenciled high above our heads. It was quite a metaphor. It was on the literal wall, of course, but also that heritage is visible in everything that we do. The Protestant tradition we come from is in the tunes of the songs we sing. It's in the fact that we meet on Sunday mornings, often in a building owned explicitly for that purpose. We've expanded our theology, but the ways we embody that theology have stayed the same for centuries. To me, the shadow of the cross on the wall on Sunday morning was a physical manifestation of a structure that was frozen in time. It said, we have decided to do things differently, but we're not quite doing it that way yet because the details are still kind of stuck in committee. So around this time of the shadow of the cross business, I was feeling personally stuck in committee myself. I was very much in love with Unitarian Universalism and its values, and I was expressing that love by going to seminary, where we talked about this shadow of the cross stuff. We wouldn't have used that language, but we talked about how social change was threatening traditional institutions like legacy media and academia and, of course, church, and how we might expand our structures to adapt. But we had those conversations in a university, mirroring the old ways of doing things with every detail of our structure, with all the expense that goes with academia, and the inertia, and the gatekeeping. And so by approaching the issue from only that perspective, we were taking down the cross, but continuing to function within the confines of its shape. So I sucked at all of this. Even when I am not critiquing the premise of school, I am a terrible student. Forcing my brain to study has always felt like trying to wrestle an active toddler into a car seat. I had long since received an ADHD diagnosis, which is the medical term for the active toddler car seat situation. And I had received medication and behavioral suggestions and, of course, all the messages that go with all of that. At the time, I saw myself as disordered and the wrong shape, but I loved UUism and I wanted to serve it. And this was how you did it, so I was determined to squeeze into the role that was being asked of me. Sometimes. On my better behaved days, I was determined. On my less disciplined days, I would skip the books and sermons we were supposed to be paying attention to, and I would do what I love to do, which is laugh. And I remember one day, I was procrastinating on my homework, watching the comedians on YouTube, and I thought, wait a second. They are talking about the exact same ideas as the people in the books I'm supposed to be reading. Big topics, often very tricky ones. Stand-up comedians tackle all of it, religion, money, race, ethics, but they do it in a way that's funny and accessible and easy for regular people to pay attention to. This was the beginning of a doorway in me. Maybe the fact I had trouble paying attention wasn't just the flaw that would make me a crappy minister, although I do firmly believe I would have been a crappy minister. Maybe those traits, though, were what would allow me to talk about the same kinds of things ministers do, but tackle it in a way that's easier to pay attention to. A little funny, maybe, even. The farther I moved from the powerless position of a grade school child, the more assertive that line of thinking became. Now I would sit in my school lecture and the usual messages would go through my mind. The problem is, I need to be better at paying attention. But now there was this little voice that argued back, that argued, how come it's always that I have to work harder to pay attention? I have been working hard for years. How come my professors never have to work any harder at being easier to pay attention to, huh? Now, when it wasn't dry, the stuff I was learning was also, it was not what I had expected. I had always had these stories of our history in my head, like Michael Servetus, the Unitarian martyr, chased, persecuted, and ultimately burned at the stake for his brave act of speaking the truth to John Calvin. So it turns out, if you read Servetus's writing in his own words, well, he is smart, he's articulate, he's also obnoxious. He doesn't just speak his truth, he stalks John Calvin. He writes letters arguing with every point Calvin makes. He writes and distributes books. At one point, Calvin has a warrant out for Servetus's arrest, and Servetus goes to one of Calvin's talks, sits in the front row, and stares him down. He was always there, like the worst kind of internet troll, but in real life. Servetus did not deserve what happened to him. Nobody does. But after reading his actual words dripping with arrogance and condescension, there was like this little part of me that sympathized with John Calvin. Servetus, I know that guy. I have chaired meetings containing that guy. Sometimes I have been that guy in the meeting. He's the best of us in some ways and the worst of us in others. Or Emerson and Thoreau. I had always admired the transcendentalists, how they forged these intentional, beautiful lives full of integrity. Learning a bit more about it, Thoreau could retreat to the woods to suck the marrow out of life because he was living on land that Emerson gave him to use for free. Where'd the land come from, Thoreau? And this story about you're making a bold choice to live a simple life off the land in the woods, I think we could say Thoreau didn't invent that way of living. In fact, before Thoreau's people arrived, simple was the only way anyone ever lived in those woods. There was this whole system supporting Thoreau. He had no kids to take care of. He had his free land. We're pretty sure Emerson's wife was doing his laundry. Louisa May Alcott, meanwhile, is living a few miles away, making all the same theological points about simplicity and intentionality and virtue in what became her best-selling novel, Little Women. But she wrote in a way that was funny and story-based. While her dad sat in the study talking philosophy with Thoreau and Emerson, he did not work for much of Louisa's life, Louisa got to work writing. In a world not built for women to have a voice, she found a way to have one. In a world not built for women to earn, she found a way to feed her family with that voice. And she did all of that while she was doing her own laundry. So I'm sure you can hear my edge to my voice. I wasn't the only one who was feeling critical of our history, and we malcontents found one another and we bonded. And we used all of our pent-up irritation and our very specific knowledge to play historically specific pranks on one another. So, one time, some of our friends who ran a UU housing cooperative in Boston posted online that they were accepting applications for new roommates. A few of us applied as various famous Unitarians and Universalists. We applied as Emerson, listing Thoreau under pets. We applied as Michael Servetus, and under food allergies, we listed barbecue. I'm not endorsing it, I'm just saying what happened. We applied as people we thought were missing from our mainstream history, too. Reverend Olympia Brown, the first woman in the US to be ordained. Dorothy Dix, whose tireless lobbying transformed conditions for institutionalized people in the US, Canada, and several other countries. These women's names are not among our best-known heroes. But when you line them up against Thoreau in the woods or Servetus with his letters, they deserve just as much acknowledgement. So the housing co-op wrote back, and they invited us for an interview, which was going to be tricky, as we were dead. The housing co-op also cautioned us in their letter that some housemates may not have experience in living with the dead and may require education on matters of corporeal privilege. All of this was followed by a week of messaging and coordinating and giggling and pranking that left me feeling warm and connected. Connected with my peers and with my UU heritage, poking fun at some things, lifting up stories that ought to be told. Connected with my values as we coordinated to know just how far to push things so it stayed funny for everybody. Above all, the prank left me feeling a part of UUism. I mean, we understand shared jokes because they come out of shared values. Corporeal privilege? How UU is that joke? This was a space that had room for me, where I didn't have to change shape to fit into a prescribed shadow. And I didn't want it to end. So on a whim, I created a Facebook group, and I named it the UU Hysterical Society. It was a play on the UU Historical Society, who have changed their name like twice since then, so nobody ever gets my joke. They just tell me that the word hysterical has a troublesome history used as a weapon to discredit and sometimes harm women. Because of course they tell me that. And they're right. Throughout history, the symptoms of hysteria have been varied. Sometimes it was a woman who was struggling with what we would now call a mental illness or a disability, sometimes a physical condition like epilepsy, or a life choice like deciding not to get married. Often it was a woman who was unwilling or unable to toe the line in some way. Hysteria was the catch-all word for any woman who was being inconvenient. A hysterical woman is a woman who's the wrong shape. And I, who was struggling so hard to fit into the shadow of the cross, I loved my UU Hysterical Society. It was an expression of my values. It was a space that fit me. It was a break from the ministerial formation process at a time when that process was starting to break me. And for years, I didn't think of it as anything more than my own personal refuge. By the time I clued into what was going on, we had about 20,000 members. Someone posted that she nearly drove her car off the road after spotting a UU church. She said she thought we were a joke religion made up for the purposes of the UU Hysterical Society, and that seeing a real UU church was like spotting a unicorn. She said she almost drove her car off the road yelling, "They're real! They're real!" And I thought, wow, we could be telling 20,000 people about what Unitarian Universalism is. And then I thought, oh crap. I am not the right person to represent UUism on that kind of scale. I didn't finish the assigned readings. Fortunately, I didn't have to be the right person for the job. A religious educator named Kathy joined the team at about this time and was able to fill in the gaps. And together we stewarded the group as it continued to grow. And I toyed with the idea that maybe we should become something more, like maybe a legal entity that could apply for grants to fund all this work Kathy was putting in. But even thinking along those lines felt presumptive. I mean, who did I think we were? It's not a rhetorical question. I had no idea who we were or what we were doing. And then in November of 2019, something happened that changed my perspective forever. Reverend Mbutsa Ndadijimana approached me for help raising money to settle a group of refugees. He's a Unitarian minister from Burundi. In November of 2019, the Hysterical Society held its first charity fundraiser. It was holiday themed because Christmas seems to go with refugees in my mind. We sold funny PDFs like labels for wine that said, "Hey, this was water a minute ago." We sold tags that said, "It's the thought that counts, and I way overthought this." We sold flasks that said, "For when thoughts and prayers are not enough." And "This is my spiritual practice," which is a pun in two ways. We raised more than $16,000, and on one of my many trips, arms full of flasks to the post office guy said, "Okay, I'll bite. What is a hysterical society?" And I didn't respond how I usually do when asked what I do for a living. Normally, I would mumble, "I run a Facebook group that makes fun of my religion." This is not a very accurate answer, but it does end the conversation. Instead, I lifted up my head and I grinned, and I answered with confidence and said we were a group that was about joy and community and refugees. We had started gathering around laughter, which is a good in and of itself. It's like a soup kitchen for the soul. But we were slowly turning into more than that. We were about laughter and community still, but also about bringing dignity to people who deserve a new chance to build a life. The Canadian not-for-profit Mirth and Dignity, Inherent Mirth and Dignity, was incorporated the following month. To this day, 100% of the profits from our merchandise goes to the charity that Mbutsa founded. But most of what we do is support for forms of UUism that are not supported by traditional institutions. This includes the Hysterical Society, which is now at around 300,000 members, but it also includes a board game ministry and a project on TikTok, a comedy podcast, most recently online soulful singing. I could go on, but this is not an infomercial. You don't need this much detail unless you share a vision of UUism beyond traditional structures, in which case you should talk to me about becoming one of the people who supports us with a $5 a month pledge. Okay, now I am done. For now, what I really want to draw your attention to is the overarching arc of this story, this feeling of not quite fitting, which is, I find, a feeling that a lot of UUs can empathize with. Many of us became UU because we didn't fit into the communities we were born into. And we have together figured out how to be diverse theologically. And I believe that right now we're on the cusp of figuring out how to be diverse structurally, to have a bunch of different interconnected ways for UUism to exist in the world. We have together inherited a shadow of a cross, a set of institutions and practices that define real religion that don't always work for modern communities. I have heard from people who feel like they're tired, like they're trying to do too much in their congregations. They feel focused on the wrong things. In our churches and in larger society, we're working as hard as we can, and it's still not quite doing the trick. What if we're not cracking because we're breaking, but because we're turning into something different? What if we lean into changing shape, into a version of UUism that contains churches, but also all kinds of different types of communities in a symbiotic relationship? I have no idea where that would lead, any more than I had any idea where the prank in 2015 would lead. But I do know that the first step is to give ourselves permission to be who we are, not who we think we're supposed to be, or who we've always been. What would we do differently if we saw ourselves as hatching? As the Leonard Cohen lyric says, "Ring the bells that still can ring, forget your perfect offering. There are cracks in everything. That's how the light gets in." Which I think is true, but I think it's not the whole picture. The cracks are how the light gets in, sure. Sometimes, though, the cracks are also how the light gets out. The cracks are where the hatching starts. When the Spirit says sing, goes the song, we sing, and so sing we shall. I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
will now read our chalice extinguishing message.
I must say, class, as your teacher, I love this look. When you came in, you brought the world with you. I saw furrows and I saw shoulders tensed up. And now your shoulders are down, your face is all relaxed. You look 20 years younger. So let's take that out with us as we extinguish our chalice. Please remember the words of the inimitable Molly Ivins. Keep fighting for freedom and justice, beloveds, but don't forget to have fun doing it.
I invite anyone who has just begun to visit with us and who wishes to do so to introduce themselves. Please raise your hand and an usher will bring a microphone to you. Please keep the microphone close to your mouth so we can hear you better. I see some red name tags. It's not hard. Just give us your name and maybe where you came from, why you're here.
It's on.
You don't have a red name tag on. That's okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Deb Shea. Deb is a friend from the Villages who is just a delightful person to know. And she also has her service dog with her today, Cannon, who is just the best puppa after ours, of course. But he is a good dog. So please say hi to Deb and welcome her.
Welcome, Deb.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Both Ken and I look forward to being back again.
So is there a reception on for Canada after?
Great idea.
Anyone else? No? If you would like to receive regular communications on upcoming Tri-U events, please take and fill out a guest card, which will be available at the door after the service. On April 28th, there will be a class for those wanting to know more about Tri-U. Please sign up at the table in the back of the room. I think that one's maybe back over there. If you have any questions, feel free to see Andrea at the table after the service. We are interested to hear how you experienced this hybrid worship service and/or what you took away from the sermon. For those who are on Zoom, raise your hand to speak or type your comment in the chat box. For those here in the room, please raise your hand. If there is time, I will call on you. Please share your name and keep the microphone close to your mouth so we can hear you better. Our Zoom friends miss your face. If you are willing, they would love to see you while you are talking. If you wish to be seen on the monitors and by those on Zoom, please stand directly in front of the pulpit. Please keep your comments brief and on topic. No announcements, please. Peg?
I live next door to a woman who is her husband has passed away, but she was married to a Lutheran minister. And so when I started thinking about coming to church, first she was surprised, but I get that. And then she finally said to me, "What church do you go to?" And I said, "I go to Unitarian Universalist." She said, "That's not a church." And at the time, I immediately felt guilty and repentant that I had said I had gone to a church. But I have permission now to laugh instead of feeling bad about it. And that's exactly what I will do from now on. And I'm going to go tell her, "You're right, it isn't a church."
Thank you, Peg. Yvette?
Thank you, Liz. It's been a joy having you here. Towards the end of your talk, you said that we need to start figuring out who we are rather than what we have been all this time. I have found it very difficult to figure out who I am after 70 years of being something for someone else or being something that I thought I should be.
Yeah. Peggy?
Well, I just want to thank you. I have my whole life lived in the shadow of that cross, so that story was a wonderful image to me and very apropos to a lot of things in my life. So I like that analogy. I like that story, but all of it was joyful. The service was joyful. Thank you for bringing that. I appreciate it.
I wanted to thank the guest minister. I'm from Hartford, Connecticut, and I remember your preaching there, and congratulations on the taking off of your ministry. And also in diversity, include good men in the thing of your list of people. Reverend Jesse Jackson's memorial service was yesterday. I heard some of it, and he was a great human being and a great person. And also a funny word is a schmutzdeck. It's that stuff, that undesirable stuff that floats to the top of a sewage plant.
Helene, someone online? Oh.
Good morning. I'm so sorry I can't be with you today. I'm recovering from a respiratory illness, and the time change was just too much of a leap for me today to be with you. But I think we found a theme for our Board of Trustees retreat in April. I had wrote down in big letters the word hatching, and I just love the idea that we could hatch and encompass the fact that we are different and live into our difference. So I really want to thank you for really showing us in a very imaginative way, to use the things that are our strengths and go with it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy. Get well soon.
Thanks.
Andrea?
This is a question. Okay, is that better? It's on.
Nope. Go.
It's on. I've got it holding properly. I'm speaking loudly. Okay.
There you go.
Here's a question. So we have the forum this Thursday, which you're going to present at, and it sounds fascinating. It confused some of us at the beginning because what does it say? Anyway, I thought, so what is this about? Anyway, but then reading the smaller print, I haven't yet really advertised it among my non-UU friends because it seemed very specific to UU, but I'm wondering, is it something that others outside our little cult would appreciate and get something from?
Yes, so it would work for people outside so the beginning part is how do we adapt to a world with everything that's changing personally, right? In our own personal lives, how do we make decisions? And it does move on to how does that apply to churches? But I do it in a way that it could be churches or any institution. So library, everybody's involved with something that is a legacy institution right now, and that's only towards the end anyways. So I would think, yes, it would. Excellent.
Okay. Did that. Next is the benediction.
Let us go out into the world, open to all of the little transformations, to the cracks and the hatching and all the other shapes we might take. Let us go into the world open to all the ways that the light gets in and all the ways that we can let the light out. Let it be so.
for coffee and fellowship in the back of the room until 11 o'clock. If you want a bit more to eat and more time to visit, there's a sign-up sheet on the table near the bookshelves to coordinate with others who like to go out for brunch. The Zoom room will stay open for 20 minutes. And I think a little bird told me that somebody has a birthday today.